So we'll now open it up. I have the list from when you came in. We really want to hear from you. Please keep your comments, ideas, suggestions, questions to 3 minutes or less. There is a microphone that is turned on. At the front here, if you would come up when I call your name, introduce yourself, where you live, and let us know what you think. First name on my list is Mac Everett.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Mac Everett, and I live on Valley Street in Ward 3 here. And I watched the comments the other night and had some thoughts that I wanted to follow up with. First of all, like other people did on Monday, to thank you all for your hard work. Obviously, you're getting glasses. We know you're really working hard on this issue, and I know you're all thinking a lot about it. First, I wanted to say that I'm proud that as a community we voted to close the landfill facility that I believe has had the potential to cause harm to an aquifer, which is a priceless resource that future generations will likely need. I hope that we as a community can continue to set a forward-looking example in the choices we make about how we deal with our trash. I too am inspired by the dedication and creativity that pedal people have shown. I'm sure a lot of people laughed when they first proposed a bicycle-based trash collection. Now they're an example to the nation. When they ride by, I think how sweet the air smells without clouds of diesel fumes. We know that whatever we do now will cost more than the past, and in the past. Running a regional landfill has subsidized our costs. That is ending, period. Hopefully the higher price of disposal will make us more diligent. I'm ready for some bold steps to reduce waste, which we will for now ship elsewhere. And I think I'm not alone. For starters, I think we should look seriously at banning non-recyclable packaging in our city. I applaud Cereos Market and their industrious sewing partners for the reusable bag program they initiated. I agree we should have several composting facilities around town for those who can't set up their own compost pile. The pedal people have already set one up in our neighborhood in conjunction with the Montview Neighborhood Farm. I would also love to see the BPW set up a chipper in several locations in the spring for turning bulky trimmings, prunings, and fallen limbs into usable mulch. I have some questions I'm sure you've been pondering. What percentage of our trash are we currently recycling? What percentage have the most effective programs in the country achieved? And what can we do to improve our performance? If we don't have a community goal, let's set one to reach for and track our progress. My wife and I currently fill a 30-gallon trash bag about once a month. Often, it's the accumulating recyclables or the need of new reading material from the bookshed, not the garbage, that determines when we go to Locust Street. We agree that an important community gathering place would be lost if Locust Street were closed, and we would love to see an expansion of the take it or leave it concept. We also do favor the suggestion of moving to biodegradable bags. As the nation runs out of landfills, I think ultimately we will look to Europe for regional answers. My understanding is that they have made huge advances in both recycling and the scrubbing and filtering technologies in their high-tech trash incinerators. The NIMBY factor there has been practically eliminated by the effectiveness of the technology, the perks of offering neighbors cheaply co-generated heat and electricity, and the design of facilities so that they are not an eyesore. The way we solve or fail to solve this problem will have an impact on our environment for a long time. Let's show our children and grandchildren that we have the smarts to do the right thing, even if it's more expensive and sometimes less convenient. Thank you.
If you do have something written, it would be great if you could let us have it at the end. That would be great because you will have it put up on the website for everybody to see.
I'm trying to be the timekeeper. As you were speaking, I was trying to think of the least intrusive way to say you had gone over. Does it seem reasonable if I let some people know when there are about 15 seconds left?
Yeah.
That seem okay? All right. Yep. All right.
Dick Kozowski, do you want to speak? You had a question mark. And if people decide that if you didn't say you wanted to speak when you walked in and you have since changed your mind and you do like to speak, I think we'll have that time at the end for people to do that. Thanks. Thank you.
I'm going to give you a new perspective today. A couple weeks ago, I was coming home from
You know, who are you? And
Dick Kozowski, Nonotuck Street, Florence. A couple of weeks ago, I was coming home from Bradley Airport and had the privilege of driving through Suffield. I was coming home from the airport and came through Suffield, Connecticut, which is a rather prosperous community. And lo and behold, lined up on the curb were dozens, hundreds of wonderful rolling toter cars at the end of people's driveways. 2 for each driveway, one color, one another color. So apparently they have an automated pickup system which picks up these things, boom, 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 which is maybe rather economical for them. Coming home, I drove down Bridge Road, and thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have that there? I want you to think of this before the snow melts. What were the end of driveways looking like during this winter? All right, people who put their barrels out at the end of the driveway have to somehow get out of that driveway and get into that driveway, around the barrel. All right, and the way you do that, I guess, is to drive the car out in the street first, leave the screaming kids in there, go back to the garage, get your toter, wheel it out, leave it there, hope it's there when you come back. And then when you come home, you have to repeat the ritual. You have to leave the car in the street, get the toter out of the way, all right, get your car in the driveway, bring it back. So in all of your discussions about curbside pickup, I want you to keep in mind winter. Winter in Northampton. Winter on driveways that have no sidewalks. Winter where people have hills. And what's the safety factor for getting these roll-offs into people's driveways, out of their driveways, and making it convenient for the pickup people, but maybe not so convenient for the homeowner? Good.
thank you. Emily Wergen?
Emily, if you could just point the mic down a little bit to you.
Hi, I'm Emily Wergeen. I live on Riverside Drive in Florence, and I'm one of 13 worker owners of Pedal People Cooperative. We currently collect compost, recycling, and trash for about 500 residential and 40 business customers in Northampton, Florence, and Leeds, and haul it by bicycle to the Locust Street transfer station. As a pedal person, I've had the privilege of becoming intimately aware of the volume, weight, and contents of our community's waste stream. A large portion of a majority even, of the things that we're sending to the landfill don't need to go there. I believe we should see this conversation when our landfill is closing and waste will soon be trucked farther and dumped in another community's backyard as an opportunity to creatively reduce the volume of trash we're producing. This is going to have some overlap from the first speaker's comments. Let's ban organics in the trash and turn those food scraps into nutritious compost. Let's expand upon the reuse opportunities like the Locust Street Bookshed, clothing drop-off, and take it or leave it table have offered to make it easier for residents to share unwanted usable household goods. Let's actually enforce the mandatory recycling laws the city already has. Let's make the trash disposal fee high enough that there is funding to pay for working with area businesses to reduce wasteful, non-recyclable packaging like clamshell containers that they currently use. Let's educate our community about their trash recycling and where it goes so that they understand why they should reduce their waste production. Let's push the state to help us reduce bottled water waste by adding a $5 deposit to those plastic bottles. Our Pedal People bikes and trailers are already an icon of Northampton's environmentally conscious population. Let's make our city's waste management strategies reflect those values as well. Thank you.
Emily, again, if you could give those written comments when you're, that'd be great. John, and you'll have to excuse my messing up your last name. John Kanotis? Kanotis.
I had a question right there. I just wondered why we have to close Locust Street Transfer Center. I mean, we're going to keep picking up recyclables, right?
It was only in one of the curbside pickup options that we considered what the whole picture might look like if we did curbside pickup and closed the transfer stations. So of the 4 options, we only considered that for one of those options.
Right. I mean, I like to see that one stay open because it takes care of Florence, Leeds, the eastern part of North End. Then you get down to the western part of the town up as far as West Staten. That, you know, that's kind of located for Glendale, North Farms Road or West Farms Road, and Sylvester. So that was my only. So that's it. I'd like to see it stay open.
Thanks, John. Susan Norton?
Hi, I'm Sue Norton. I live in Winslow Avenue in Bay State. I have a couple of different questions. One is, the main one is what is going to happen? Have you investigated about the options of where you're going to take this waste once it's collected? Because I didn't see any information in the handout on that subject. And the second is that I was surprised to realize that half the town already has private curbside collection. I didn't realize it was that much. And I was wondering how much cheaper it would be if the mandatory collection would be versus continuing private collection with the other options of keeping the landfill open, because that wasn't addressed either. If half the town is already doing the private collection, are they having, one of the previous speakers talked about the problems with the snow and the ice. What about problems with strewing garbage or critters, bears walking down the street, getting into the garbage? Because certainly everybody here has seen a bear walking down the street one time or another. And yeah, that's about it, I guess, about the curbside one. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Ed Towles?
We've also been asked for people to lean into the mic a little bit.
Karen knows me very well. I worked up there for 3 years in Locust Street, and go ahead, you talk. The people that come up to that Locust Street value that place very much, as well as they do the recycling at the Locust Street, Glendale. And there is nothing more that people enjoy more than coming up there and getting rid of their stuff. They can separate their stuff, and most of the people come up there and they're very good at recycling. They don't like to have a bunch of changes because they get set in their ways of doing things, and then they change their ways. They want to do away with pizza boxes, then they say, well, we'll take the pizza boxes. Then they say they don't want this kind of plastic, then they'll take this kind of plastic. Those are the things that people get upset with up there. But as a whole, I don't know, the man that said he only has a 30-gallon bag of trash a month, I don't know, I've got 1 cat and 1 wife, and we go through about 6 or 8, if not more, a month. So I give him credit that we can do that. Thank you very much.
Don't tell your wife that you listed your cat first. Thanks, Ed. Doug Townsend?
Doug Townsend, Glendale Road. First of all, the waste assumptions, I don't know where these people come from. They must import trash to their house every month. Because my wife and I, 40-gallon bag, 6 weeks to get one bag. And a couple of years ago, I talked to Dave Starr. He's got a family, and he said, well, I go 8 weeks for a 40-gallon. So he's super recycler. So I don't understand where they get these averages from. These are way on the outskirts as far as I'm concerned. I want to thank all the committee members for using their personal time to be on this committee. I think it's a very worthwhile committee. And I think I stopped down to Valley, the new facility on Route 10, and it's $2 a 40-gallon bag, same as we're paying currently. I believe I read in the paper that one of the options was $175 for a car sticker, is that correct? Under one of these options? No? Well, they don't require a car sticker. So, and they will accept most anything down there. Recyclables, and of course you'll pay a fee for tires and mattresses and things like that. I think the city should have one of the committees from the city, whether it be the finance committee, the DPW, or the city council, deal with one trash hauler, be the speaker for the 50% of the residents that do not want to bring their own, to try and keep the prices fair. And the other 50% can go down to Route 10 and get rid of their trash the same way they do now. And if you have to keep Glendale open 1 or 2 days a month to handle the things that they won't accept down there, you can get the city pretty much out of this altogether, which will save a lot of headaches. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. John Lyons.
Yeah, Wayne, Terry rather, touched on this already. But I'm just hopeful. I'm John Lyons, 80 Damon Road, River Run, and we have our own pickup. But I have used the services of Northampton to get rid of brush, and I would like to see the more problematic, the refrigerators, the mattresses and so forth, being able to get rid of them on a regular basis, for a fee, of course. But, so no matter which option is chosen, I do hope that we can, paints and all of that stuff can be gotten rid of in a short time frame all year round. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Teresa O'Neill.
I said no, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But actually, I do have a question.
All right. The floor is yours, Teresa. You're right, you did right now. Just being left blank.
I'm on Prospect Street, Ward 1A. The recommendations that you move forward with, how many are you going to move forward with, and who has the ultimate decision on which option or options will be chosen?
Okay, that's a factual question that I think we can answer.
Could you repeat the question? I don't hear it.
Lean right in.
Speak into the microphone.
How many recommendations are you moving forward with, and who has the ultimate decision on which option or options are chosen?
I don't think we have a set number of recommendations that we're moving forward with. The charge had plural. Instead of one recommendation, it did say recommendations. And these will be recommendations made to the Board of Public works. Is that answer?
So they are the ultimate decider? Okay. Thank you.
Phil Sullivan? Did you step out?
Yeah.
I'll come back. Ron Ackerman?
Ron Ackerman, South Street area, Ward 4. I'm not only thanking you for your hard work, but your thoughtful consideration of so many of the issues so many of us are dealing with. We're already up there. And that you've incorporated them into your process already has been very reassuring to me. So I thank you for that as well. I'm one of those folks who goes to the Locust Street transfer station. And I love that we've expanded it to include food waste composting and cooking oil receiving. And it's hard for me to imagine that that's going to be able to be incorporated by private haulers. And I understand that even the pedal people are not able to pick up those food waste composting things. I stopped and asked one because I'd love to support them as well. So that's an issue I'd like you to keep considering in terms of how we all who want to recycle can expand our recycling. Everything else has been spoken to by others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Ann Alexander?
I'm Ann Alexander from Langworthy Road. I want to recycle a few ideas in way under a minute. Thanks so much for all your good work. Most, if not all of us, are concerned about the environment. For a modest annual fee, Locust Street has provided a good waste disposal system for a long time. I think a decision to keep Locust Street would be environmentally sound for at least 4 reasons. First, it's centrally located, closer for more people than Glendale Road. All that new traffic out to Glendale Road wouldn't help the environment. 2, Locust Street encourages recycling. Recycling is free, and the more you recycle, the smaller and therefore cheaper your trash bag is to dispose of. 3, I found the new composting program at Locust Street to be very convenient. It makes so much sense for our environment, and it's also free. And 4, the wonderful pedal people dispose of waste in the most environmentally sound way. Without Locust Street, what would become of them? Conversely, if we changed to mandated curbside pickup, garbage cans would decorate the whole town on trash days. I can't imagine where they would fit among the piles of snow, but mice and raccoons would love them. Please keep Locust Street open.
John Lind?
Change glasses, otherwise I won't be able to read what I wrote. I'd like to,
John, could you speak into the microphone a little
sure,
bit?
I'd like to expand on the first speaker's idea about the providing chippers in certain places in the city for leaves and branches and such. And it seems to me that this is an idea that I've had for a long time, especially when you go into the large Glendale landfill and you see all of the leaves and all of the branches that are brought in there. It's just incredible. These materials can be compounded with the kitchen wastes, and they can be further turned into compost in a commercial self-contained bioreactor. This is like the latest state-of-the-art stuff. There's a professor down in New Jersey that has one on the campus at the University of Montclair. And what they do is the bioreactors can actually heat composting materials as opposed to putting them in windrows on the ground like in a farming situation. They can heat the waste and turn that waste at 160 degrees using a second stage bacteria to break down that waste, but not just the waste, the methane gas, which is far more deadly than the carbon dioxide we're all concerned about. And it's the methane gas that we smell. It's the methane gases that we can associate with waste. By doing that, I believe what we can do is we can turn that composted kitchen waste, which by my research over the years, I found that supposedly in municipal waste, about 50% of it is kitchen waste. We can turn that kitchen waste and those leaves and branches into compost that we can then sell as a product. The other thing is too, I'd like to also agree with one of the last speakers about the Locust Street Recycling Center. And I believe that if we go to something like curbside pickup, basically there's two ways of doing that. And if you look at curbside pickup and bins and all that kind of stuff, everything gets thrown into them. Wherever that facility is, that transfer facility, they're going to empty those bins and they're going to separate there. But everything has gone into that, and there really is no future as far as recycling goes. And I think the city of Northampton has gone in an entirely different direction than a lot of other cities and towns. The other thing too is with the curbside pickup, and I have nothing against commercial haulers or anything like that, but when you live in a really big city, one of the first things that you start to notice is that the curbside pickup, I use these numbers, 5,000 homes in Northampton. Obviously now we know that 2,500 of those homes are already having curbside pickup, but what would happen is, can I wrap it? If you do that, you probably run the risk of having curbside pickup occur at hours early in the morning, maybe late at night, perhaps, if they get bound up with some problem, snow or whatever the case is. Well, anyway, thank you.
Mary Ann Clausen?
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Clausen, and I live off of South Street, very near to Terry. And I do also want to thank you all for laying out these problems so beautifully. I seem to be one of the rare people in this room for whom curbside pickup is not a foreign concept, since my family has had curbside pickup for all the years we've lived here. More recently, we've had the pedal people do it. And one thing I want to do is speak strongly on behalf of any solution that gets adopted, retaining a role for pedal people. They are, first of all, extremely efficient providers of curbside pickup, and fully as reliable as the commercial services that I've observed. But they also play an important role in encouraging recycling among people who take curbside pickup. I think one of the previous speakers questioned whether recycling could be encouraged and could be done effectively through curbside pickup. I think most people who have curbside pickup do engage in some degree of recycling, and certainly separating paper, for example, from real trash, I guess we could call it. But the pedal people have been very proactive in encouraging recycling of compostable materials as well. And at their urging, we have begun to do that and have substantially limited the amount of trash that we actually do accumulate over the week. And that's the final point I want to make, that whatever kind of curbside pickup people would use under a new system, that any curbside pickup program or vendor be required to offer a compostable materials pickup, as well as trash newspapers, bottles, etc., that have traditionally been separable and picked up in those separate ways. Thank you.
Ellen Coteen?
Hi, Helen Coteen, Ward 7. Just a couple of things. I want to encourage you to keep both Glendale and Locust Street open, and therefore I propose options 2 and 4. Also, our family of 2 creates much less garbage than the assumption, so I think you need to be aware that those assumptions may not work for us. Curbside pickup would definitely not work in our house. We're in the country, we have a long driveway, we have a lot of bears. It just would not work, especially in the winter. So I oppose mandatory curbside pickup. It's clear that the more successful the recycling is, the higher the price of the trash garbage will be. So there's almost, they go in opposite directions. I didn't hear any mention of a citywide compost system in your presentation. You talked about backyard composting, but I don't believe there was mention of a citywide compost program, which I think is important. And because the trash costs will increase so much, I think there needs to be some consideration of low-income people who simply may not be able to afford, and what happens to their trash, and will we find it in the woods or other places. So I don't know if there's a subsidy or something, but I think you need to have some option for low-income people. Clearly, there's a concern about where this waste is going and who is going to end up with our waste. And I think that's it, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Ellen. Diane Palladino?
Hello. I live at Sylvester Road, Ward 7, use the Glendale dump all the time. I also bring my recycling there, so it's very, very convenient. Couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee once again for their work. I do wish that all of these options and the consequences of closing the landfill had been brought to the community prior to the city council vote. I think that we have put the cart before the horse. Not that I'm suggesting that the landfill should or should not have been closed, but I think our planning process could have been much better had we known these options. And I hold the city council responsible for not initiating that prior to their vote. So having said that, my piece about the process, I have several concerns. One, just to repeat, the costs. We've heard nothing about costs, and I know it's very difficult for you to come up with costs, but I think to make a decision about options, we need to know what it's going to cost us. And again, I have concerns about fixed income people, I have concerns about low income people. Two, I have a concern about the impact on our environment with an increase in mechanized trash pickup, more trucks, more spewing forth of emissions, and more wear and tear on our roads. Sylvester Road, everyone knows, cannot sustain any more traffic and still be a road. So that's a concern. My third concern is exporting trash to another community. If we were so concerned about health and closing down our own landfill because of our own health and the impact of that landfill on health and the health of the people of Northampton, we are exporting that health risk to somewhere else. And I really find that philosophically unacceptable. So I think this process having been rushed, we have not given ourselves enough time to think about all of these concerns. This is not the committee's fault in any way. We've come up with, I think, all kinds of options that are reality. But I think in implementation, it seems to be, we're being pushed in implementation because of the time frame that's occurred. So, thank you very much.
Phil Sullivan?
Actually, the previous speaker stole all my thunder, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I'm in total agreement. One thing I do like about what goes on now as far as the municipality having private pickups is it's a choice. You make your own choice. I like to make my choices.
Ed McColgan?
My name is Ed McColgan. I live at 115 Fairway Village. I also would like to thank the committee for the energy and hard work you put into reaching these options. people have all already spoke about how to reduce the waste stream, and that's good. But I want to comment just on the options. Perhaps you folks will be lucky enough to carry this further and discuss more options, or you'll want to get off the committee. I would support option 1, because I think it gives the most freedom to citizens of Northampton. They can choose the options they want: Glendale Road, Locust Street, the Pedal people, private haulers. It's up to them to make that decision. And I would urge that you give that consideration. Thank you.
Fran Schwartz.
Fran Schwartzberg, South Street Neighborhood, Ward 4. Thanks to the committee for your work and for everybody for coming out on this important issue. I wanted to address 6 or 7 issues, if I can speak quickly. One, I do contract with the pedal people, and they're great. I hope that we can keep a bicycle option for the city. It's the most environmentally friendly in terms of reducing air pollution, our carbon footprint, decreases damage to roads. Garbage trucks are heavy and they actually do cause damage to roads, and it's safer. I knew a few people who were killed by garbage trucks, and I know a number of other people who survived accidents with garbage trucks, so they're safer. If you get hit by pedal people, you will probably survive, thankfully. And if you don't contract with the pedal people, I want to say it's not just an environmental issue. I actually calculated out, based on the federal mileage rate, how much it would cost me to haul my own trash to the Locust Street Transfer Center. And I do occasionally drop things off. I have a sticker if I'm driving by and I plan for it, I'll drop some things off. But the pedal people are actually cheaper than me driving only a couple miles there on a weekly basis, and I have a 2-family. So if you calculate out your mileage, you may not be saving money by driving it there yourself, and I encourage you to do that calculation. I would also like to speak in favor of the option of keeping the Locust Street transfer station open, because it is, I believe, the most centrally located and the easiest for a bicycle option. So that is a really important consideration. Also, I want to encourage any sort of composting option. I believe the city of San Francisco a year ago mandated composting for all buildings, including multifamily, apartment buildings and single residence, and it's mandatory in the city. And I think we could go that way. In the United States, if you go to the Environmental Protection Agency's website, www.epa.gov, our federal government, there is a lot of information about recycling and trash and reduction, reuse. And you can find a lot of great information, including, I believe, the fact that about 17% of all municipal waste in the United States is compostable, and that includes leaf and yard waste as well as household food waste. And it's really important that we address that. Backyard composting is the most effective because you don't have to use other energy to take it somewhere else. But I would also support municipal composting. The pilot project that we have now, the reason the pedal people can't bring it to that is because all commercial haulers were prohibited from participating in it. It was just a household initial pilot project, but I think all our municipal haulers could be encouraged to, or mandated to do it. I would also like to encourage, obviously, all recycling and reuse, and also we need to address multi-unit buildings. Recycling should be mandatory. And I would support multiple haulers. I think the most energy efficient thing may be to divide up the city and give certain contractors certain areas as opposed to haulers going to many different streets. Thank you so much.
Joanne Bissett.
Thank you. I live on Sylvester Road. First, I'd like to say that we're not going to be exporting health risks to other communities. But what we've done, finally the right thing, is to improve the quality of life and decrease the health risks and deliver social justice and environmental justice equally to a community in Northampton that's long been waiting it. And that's why the task force should look at the landfills and incinerators that are not overproductive aquifers, that are not in a Zone 2 protection area for public wells, that are not in a water supply protection district, and that are not within 500 feet of people's homes, which is the situation here in Northampton. And I'm sure they will do that, so there will be a responsible place for the trash to go. And of course, the more recycling that occurs, and the more we move towards zero waste, there will be less trash to take anywhere. My other comments are that to plan for solid waste programs in Northampton requires an integrative approach. And the first thing that's been looked at is removal of solid waste after the landfill. But an option that hasn't been discussed is thoroughly by the task force is that residents will now have a choice of using a new private transfer station, Valley Recycling. Valley Recycling will take residential trash, bulky items, and electronics on Saturday and plans to go to a 6-day-a-week service. And their goal is to recycle as much as possible. Personally, I think both private and public transfer stations should be available to the residents. I also want to point out there's already a pay-as-you-throw system in Northampton using stickers. It's been an effective system for decades, and residents have already rejected buying garbage bags selected by the city. Residents can go to Valley Recycling and use the bag they choose. I also think the public deserves a detailed financial analysis of the city's transfer stations. Is it cheaper to run one transfer station versus two? Should the one transfer station be Locust Street? What are the revenues from sticker fees, permits, and selling recycled materials? What are the costs, including trash removal, paying gatekeepers, paying DPW salaries? Secondly, there need to be programs to decrease the solid waste stream. That's how you're going to make the cost of trash removal affordable. And this should include looking at single stream recycling. When residents don't have to separate materials, it's been shown that the rate of recycling goes up. Also, setting up swap shops at the transfer station, and some communities even provide an online service where residents can go and give items away for free to other residents for reuse. There should be a citywide program to compost organic matter, and I think it's best done in collaboration with local farms. This should not be concentrated in residential areas because of odor problems. And thirdly, there should be a look at alternative uses for the landfill site. Thank you. Which has not been done. And you know that East Hampton, Amherst, Deerfield, Greenfield, and Northfield have already worked with solar energy companies to put in solar arrays on landfills. I heard Smith College students were looking at this, but I think it's the responsibility of the city to send out contracts and bids for this now while there's still stimulus money available. The last thing I want to say is I believe that the city council should be the body that makes these decisions on the new solid waste programs. They're elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Parker.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? There we go. First of all, thank you very much for all the time that you guys have put into this very important, very complicated issue that's before us. I had the honor of watching a sustainability hearing for the townwide plan from November of '08. And one of the women got up and said, it seems that we're in the trash business, so let's do it right. And that seems to be what we're on about today. And I think that one of the things we have to realize is that gas prices are going up. We're now at $3.50 a gallon. The cost of disposing solid waste is not just the cost of putting it physically by yardage into a landfill, but it's also the cost of getting it there and the cost of the trucks. I live on Fort Hill Terrace, and we currently have 4 haulers that go up our small street. We've heard about winter and the problems therein. Our street got so narrow that one of our trash haulers backed into a car, and we had an accident, and they finally had to come and clear the street. Will we be able to clear the streets in the future? I don't know. We also, I should say we have more than the four haulers because we also have pedal people who do make it up and down the street successfully. I have done a little bit of research about what other communities are doing, and of course we have the San Francisco model to look at, and I'm sure you have all looked at the Recology site and seen what they're doing. And for the rest of the community, I have a little pamphlet here. Recology and the city of San Francisco are recycling, composting, and putting garbage. The amount of garbage is reduced, and they have a flat rate. There is a low-income option. I think that this is very important for us going forward. I think what we're not addressing is where does the stuff go? And I've heard a number of people talking about organics. I'm think that this is a very important part of it. And I would like to see an organics program, mandatory organics program here in Northampton. I think that the landfill can be dual purpose. The idea of the solar is great, but it can also be a site where organics are collected and made into soil. I had the great good honor of going to Pioneer Valley Grows recently, and what we're really trying to do is close the loop of organics back into our farming soil, into our community farm, into the farms at the meadow. And then I'm going to tell you that I also have been in conversation with Blue Star Agriculture of Palmer. They are in the rescue business of horses, and so they're repurposing horses. They're working with UMass. There's a Smith student who has a Fulbright scholarship to go to France to look at how they're using horses in collecting solid waste. And so UMass is very much involved with that, and they're actually going to be developing a model for their organics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Marcy Eisenberg, you were a question. You said maybe. You want to speak?
Hi, Marcy Eisenberg. I live on Fort Street, off of South Street, so I live right near the Meadows. First of all, thank you all. I love this town. I appreciate everybody who's here today. I put in a vote for Locust Street. I use it all the time, and when I say all the time, I mean maybe once every 2 months. I do. It's amazing how little trash I create. And I have to say, and it's part of a lot of the other things I wanted to talk about were already brought up, but I would have a lot less trash if I didn't have animals. And there are a lot of letters to the editor recently about what's been going on at the Northampton State Hospital with animal waste. I don't know if it's come up in your conversations. I use compostable bags for my dog waste. I try to find them for my cat litter, but I don't have them. But that's a lot of what goes into the trash. And I'd like it if somebody looked into some way of some other use for animal waste. And there's a lot of animal owners in Northampton. I love reuse. My garage, which was on my property when I bought my house, is now situated at another house down my street. So I've always been a big believer in reuse. I'm very involved with a lot of nonprofits here in town, and I would love to see whether it's something set up through the city or something encouraged, that if you do have an appliance or something that needs to be reused, that it's not just individual to individual, but we somehow involve the Survival Center, the food bank, a lot of those organizations which can very often benefit from the use of what other people consider their trash. Just see if I have anything else on here. And I guess I'm happy that Valley Recycle is there. It's down the road from me. I haven't used it yet because the hours are so minimal, but I would love to continue to use Locust Street. And just one other thing, please keep in mind, and I'm sure it's not just the Meadows, but it happens to be the place. Terry, you live in the neighborhood, you know. A lot of the town's problems with trash being dumped in the Meadows is basically dealt with by the residents of the South Street neighborhood every spring. If it's going to continue, I suggest we get the entire town involved in the cleanup, not just those of us who live in the neighborhood. Thank you all very much again for your work.
Thank you. Michael Bardsley, you had a question mark?
Good afternoon, and once again, thank you to the committee for having this great forum. I think the issue before us is obviously how is we as a community going to deal with this change? If the change is here, how are we going to deal with it? And then the first thing in my experience is what we need to do is to identify a clear goal. And to me, the clear general goal would be that Northampton as a city needs to get out of the business of the trash business and to focus on the business of recycling. So that's what I would suggest as being the overarching general goal. And then from that, it follows specific objectives. And what I would suggest for one round of the specific objectives would be going back to the information you have here about trash generation for the various breakdowns, is reduction of those numbers. As a single person household, I do I'll say less than 2 gallons a week. I think it's 1, but just for the sake of argument. And you have as the average is a 9.2. So to offset me, that means somebody's generating 20 gallons to come up with that average. And I would suggest that person is a recycler. So I think we have some an aggressive programs that we need, and education is a key component, and we also need some financial incentives to force people to do better recycling. So that would be in terms of getting some specific objectives that I think the committee could recommend. And then we go to an implementation, and what I would recommend is having a short-term plan, and the short-term plan, let's say, is for 2 years. And basically, I think the short-term plan should be your option 1. That staying with things how they are, keeping 2 of the transfer stations. And I think things should be simple. I think change comes to people when it comes in increments that are simple and easy to understand. I would not complicate it with other things. For example, changing the sticker system. The sticker system is something people are familiar with. Let it work, let's focus on changing people's recycling behaviors. We're getting, at these meetings, you're getting the people who apparently have good behaviors who recycle, 1 bag a month or something like that. There's a lot of other folks who apparently are not doing that. We need to get the waste stream down to a minimum and see what it is. And at the end of the first stage, or the first plan, is to look at it after 2 years or more, have another group probably, will be looking at it, and then make recommendations for a long-term plan. And then, because our behaviors, I think we need to see how the behaviors change, see the impact on the private company that's just started up, and research some of the new technologies. And then you can come up with another round of recommendations. So that's what I would recommend in terms of a game plan. And again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Jean Casey. Oh, did you leave? Okay, that's all for people who did sign up, but then there are people who have since had thought. So I saw Adam's hand first, so I'll go with Adam. I saw your hand, and I saw your hand, and I saw your hand.
My name's Adam Cohen. I live on North Street. I oppose mandatory curbside pickup. I don't think anyone for whom curbside pickup is inappropriate should be forced into such a program. But I do hope the city will undertake the experiment to have citywide curbside collection. For people like myself, currently have a private subscription service, likely to save money. It'll save on fuel, be fewer garbage trucks traveling the streets. It sounds like a great idea to me. I hope we can try it. I also want to speak a little bit to my experience with subscription services in an urban neighborhood like North Street. To my knowledge, we have not experienced significant problems with trash in the street, garbage trucks being disruptive, interrupting sleep, going at inappropriate hours, places to put our trash barrels even when there's snow. It really hasn't been a big problem. In an urban neighborhood like North Street, perhaps an outlying area, there's different variables. But I just wanted to give you my perspective on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I saw your hand. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Reed, and I live in Florence on North Main Street. I think that it makes sense to go with the option that costs the least. It sounds to me logically, for my logic is that it would be more expensive if we hired trash haulers than just keep the stations open, at least the Locust Street particularly. And then as far as generating trash, I think it takes me 3 weeks to fill up a little teeny thing like that. Look, my cat goes to the bathroom outside. I guess I'm lucky that way. But I recycle everything possible. And I heard a few years ago that and I think maybe somebody else mentioned it, but the methane at the landfill comes from organics. So so we don't want to put the organics in a landfill anyway. And also, I'm sure that's one of the reasons that I don't generate very much trash. I mean, every time there's anything that I can put in my compost, it goes in there. I would really like to see us recycle styrofoam or find a place to send that to. I know we generate a whole bunch of it, and we wash every single one and stack it up, and I don't know what we're going to do with it, but it seems so stupid to throw it in the trash. Let's see, and I thank you all for all of the effort that you are putting into this. Let's see, I think that's it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. What? Angie Gregory? Your little one.
Yes, it's actually him. He's going to talk.
Oh, good. We welcome you.
So thank you guys. My name's Angie Gregory. I live at 14 Northern. I'm in Ward 3. And I definitely agree with a lot of the things that have been said already about, incentives for people to want to recycle, or maybe, pay as you throw type things, which, if it hits your pocketbook, then you're about to probably make a change in your behavior habit. But I actually wanted to come up just to speak about one of the solid waste streams that is actually pretty large, which is diapers. So that's the third largest solid waste stream. There's a wonderful website called the Real Diaper Association if you want to get a lot more facts and figures on how much waste that is. But with that in mind, I want to also use this moment to discourage incineration of trash for that major reason. And also for Northampton being a town that is attracting a lot of new families and people who are having babies. I think there should be maybe a tax incentive for folks to purchase cloth diapers. I also utilize the Pedal People, and I recommend that they be a part of whatever plan moves forward. They are incredible workers and really reliable. And also they are kind of an icon for this city, and I think a lot of people appreciate that they're a part of our town. So I, personally also work to help reduce trash. I do run a cloth diaper service, but it doesn't cover many people for this area because it's so small. But I feel like education is key. With education programs about recycling, I think there should also be education on what to do with diapers and also what to do with what's inside the diapers, because kind of like the other people have talked about, a lot of people feel like you can throw out your poop in your diaper and you really shouldn't because of a lot of the other things that are inside of that. So I just wanted to make sure that topic was addressed in the recycling issue and encouraging recycling for our town. Thank you.
The little one. Okay, I saw his hand in the back first, all the way in the back.
Well, I'm Hawk from the back. My name is Susko, Steve Susko.
754 Bridge Road, SUSCO. Got a few comments and a prepared statement. Just reflecting while listening this afternoon, with all these great citizens, knowledgeable, opinion, energy, why are we in such a sad condition? So when Northampton? The last speaker with the diapers, I just was thinking of growing up on Ridgewood Terrace. We had triplets and a couple pairs of twins at the time. And I remember the diaper truck. It was interesting. I think we can do better today. But here for choice. Given my 58 years on Bridge Road, curbside recycling won't work there, and I won't bore you with all the details. I'd like to speak to a tangential aspect of this task force's situation. As you know, the Higgins-Narkowitz administration has stalled and so squandered our opportunity here to elevate ourselves onto a better plane and go a better direction. But as unfortunate as this is, it's not news. This is, of course, our continuing dearth of leadership. In my view, this task force, even before its inception, was for all intents and purposes sandbagged by the Narkowitz-Higgins administration. Too big a task, not enough time, not enough support. Shame on them. From a positive perspective, and in spite of some of your own resistance, I see you moving beyond this, or beginning to. I feel the community may be ahead of you, motioning for you to catch up. I do not believe this community will hold this task force responsible for any perceived shortcomings. They shouldn't. I do hope, however, they will hold the perpetrators responsible, the Narkowitz-Higgins administration. Hold your heads high, task force and staff members. As a citizen and taxpayer, and I believe soon to be disgruntled trash rate payer, I admire and appreciate your service and effort and thank you sincerely. Do your best with the hand you've been dealt. Hopefully, as our community moves forward, we can improve and fix what will need to be. But first, we will need to retire those now holding us back. I lament that other community leaders, for example, Michael Bardsley, would have us on a more productive and fruitful path now, not 2 years squandered.
I see you.
I just wanted to say really quickly, a couple people have touched upon composting. Oh, I'm Allie Wilson Pearson. I live on Fort Hill Terrace, and I'm also a pedal person. And I went to San Francisco last month and was really impressed by all the composting I saw because it is mandatory. And I did some research and looked into it and was looking for statistics and found that in the past decade, they have taken 30% out of the landfill of what they were putting away. Anyway, I think Northampton and the city is really has an opportunity to do that here, and I think we should take it.
Thanks, Al.
Hi, I'm Sydney Stern. Thank you for being Northampton and representing us. I love this community. There are two things that came up while I was listening to what folks were saying. One is in the education aspect, and I feel like transparency is really important for education. And in terms of the Locust Street and Glendale landfill, kids need to see where trash goes. They're going to be our future people. And if we close down the transparency of where trash goes and what happens to it, I think it will be like what happens when you don't know where the electricity comes from or goes to. You get yourself shocked and killed. I can suggest that as we go forward, the school department and the school committee connect with the trash people for educational programs. And I think going to the landfill and actually the sewer treatment plant are fascinating field trips. And if you think about it, the next question comes up like, where does all the trash in New York City go? Where does all the sewage in New York City go? I have never, in the years that I've been visiting, ever thought of that. And I wouldn't want that to be part of our community. I want my children and my children's children to say, you know what, this is what we did. And this is where we went, and this is part of our community. So transparency in what happens so that we have future leaders in these issues as we go down, I think is really important. So that was one. The other is tweaking what we already have. So for instance, we already have a lot of people and stores already encouraging you to use a recyclable bag. Bring your own bag. The trouble is, I have about 15 bags in my car. By the time I get up to the door of the store, I've forgotten it. The sign at Stop and Shop says, "Did you forget your bag?" But I'm already at the store. The only store I have seen that has a sign in the parking lot happens to be Big Y, and they have it around. So I think the city could put up signs in the parking garage, in the parking places, did you bring your recyclable bag? Little signs to create an awareness that we are recycling, so that you begin to do the education in the city, that as soon as you walk out of the parking lot, you're reminded, oh yeah, I'm going shopping and I can bring my recycle. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, Joe.
Well, Joseph Masturka, 312 Chesterfield Road. I'd like to thank the committee for your efforts. And I have some experience with the effort. I was on the first recycling committee 20 years ago, which started the throw, pay to throw, and the recycling. So I know the work that you're doing. But most of all, I'd like to thank the audience. I thought there were so many great suggestions and ideas, and the community is really excited about recycling. So I cannot add anything except to say, like, I think the goals that we had 20 years ago were to make it simple for people to get rid of their trash and to promote and increase recycling. And you've had many ideas, and I think you should work on that. I guess that's closest to option one, but I'm not sure, and I think that's still working. So anyway, thank you, and thank you everybody for speaking today.
Great. Or Sue?
Hi there, Sue Timberlake. I don't actually live here, I just work in Northampton, hopefully someday. I think this is within your charge, so this is really for the committee and for the DPW. As you probably know, the state has pretty strict requirements around contracting, and there's really two kinds of contracts you can go out to bid for, so when you get there, I'd like the committee to propose this to the DPW. One contract version is it's either responsive or non-responsive. If it's responsive, then you go to the cost. And the other kind of contracting, you go in a favorable, more favorable, and you actually get the subjective contract, so you can weight it more strongly so that you don't have to just consider the cost, because as you know, there's externalities in this. So I hope that you go for the, the more choice, the way to contract that the city gets more choice, and hopefully I'll live here by then.
Thank you. Twig?
Hi, Twig Burlingame, Brookside Circle. I already spoke at the last meeting, but I would hope that the BPW would have forums similar to this once they get their suggestions from this committee, which has put in a lot of time. And I think that they would do well to have forums so that the citizens could come out, the ones that haven't, and also give their opinions and questions now that a lot of things have been put out by the citizens. And like Joe, I do appreciate the people coming out. The biggest problem to solve is ideas. And I think this town has plenty of ideas. It's just a matter of getting them together and seeing what's best for all of us. I don't think the BPW would represent all of us in town as much as the city council. I would like to see them to have the final decision to make on how we deal with our trash. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to repeat speakers. Ellen, I saw your hand first. Is there but first, before we do that, is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet who would like to speak? Okay, so Ellen.
I just wanted to ask about the cost issue, and it sounded like at the beginning that we're going to get information on cost. And I think that it's unfortunate that the public hearings are coming before we have information on the cost of different options. So I don't know if we're going home with that information or what, but I think to go home and have to be confused by it is unfortunate, to not have the opportunity to have that clarified during the public hearing. So I don't know what happened to the cost, why we didn't get at the beginning and why we're getting at the end. And the last thing is I just think folks maybe need to be more educated about Northampton Free Cycle, which accomplishes many of the things people were talking about earlier. So maybe more education about the availability of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Diane, you had one more?
I think that, I know it's not in your, I'm assuming it's not in your charge, but I think that unless we address condo developments and businesses, that we're leaving out a huge piece here. When we first moved here, we lived in a condo, and it was impossible. It was impossible to do any kind of recycling. I mean, unless we took our little bags, and then we had, I mean, it was very difficult. And I don't know why we're excluding them. I think people who are in condos probably have a really good sense of wanting to deal with their trash in a responsible way. And I don't know why we're excluding businesses. So I think that we've got to make them part of the solution. If not, we're not going to really solve the problem if we exclude those two major groups.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Not? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have at River Run 216 units there, condos, and we do recycle. We separate the newspapers, the cans and bottles, and the general trash, and we have a setup where you can pay to have somebody come and pick something up. So I'm not sure that all of the condos need to be included, but maybe they do.
Yes. Come on.
I just forgot one thing, and that just that, like, I actually.
Could you come up, because we're also being filmed for NCTV, and that mic goes directly to you.
No, okay, Jeannie again. My problem is, I love to recycle everything, and I do, but I live in a place that is owned by a landlord, and he has trash haulers come to the house that I live in, and people throwing all kinds of crap in the garbage that should go into recycling, and I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, but it must happen all over the place. So something to think about.
Thank you, Jeannie. Yep, come on up.
I know I was long-winded the first time, I'll be brief. One of the things that I've heard about San Francisco is that they have report cards for people who are disposing of their trash. As I said, they do have a three-part system, but I wonder if if we can actually get people to engage in compost, and we keep a transfer station, if there's some way in which we can make sure that people are actually following the guidelines that are being set out. So, how can we be accountable? How can we as citizens be accountable? Someone was talking about choice. There are positive choices and negative choices, and so we want to encourage the positive choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Okay, that concludes today's public forum. Thank you again for coming out. There are handouts that will be given out with the estimated costs that Terry talked about in the beginning. And again, we are meeting every Monday for the rest of the month at 6:30 at the JFK Middle School. Thanks again for coming out, everybody.